A lot of my clients recently have been asking me about new beginnings. How can we start the year in a much better way than we started? That's a really hard question to ask because when you start at such a terrible place, it's hard to imagine that things can get better. It's hard to accept change. Change is naturally hard for all people to accept. And to believe that things are going to get better, that's not part of our DNA. I like to say that being cynical and feeling anxious are actually very normal parts of our regular life. And the reason why is because they're highly adaptive. These ways of living, even though they're not exactly very happy ways of living, being an anxious, panicked, depressed person, they do serve very logical functions. Your body is meant to go into a protective mode during these times. Your body wants to take care of you. Your body wants you to do nothing. Stay safe is what your body is saying. And that is hard to do because we all want to progress and move forward in life. But sometimes life doesn't allow us to. So one thing I always like to tell people is, what are some of the things that we can control right now? Instead of just simply being optimistic for optimistic's sake or being positive for positivity's sake, let's try to be realistic. Let's try to think about what are some ways that we can improve what we're doing right now. Well, overall, let's think about doing a little bit more exercise in the new year. That is something that people are really missing out on. Working out, using your body, doing some of the mindfulness exercises. Exercising doesn't have to be too challenging. Exercising can be doing some deep breaths, can be doing some stretching, can be spending some time with your kids or your grandparents. It doesn't have to be CrossFit. You don't have to break your back to do it. We can also start working on ourselves and how we think. Have we tried practicing a more balanced style of thinking? I've said in previous videos of our culture is very harsh. We're always so hard on ourselves, and oftentimes this doesn't give us really any motivation to move forward. So I always like to tell people, have you tried practicing being kinder to yourself in the new year? Do you know what's going to be the greatest way for you to be more productive and work well in the new year? It's to practice some positivity. And it's not easy. It's never going to be easy, really, because again, your body is naturally tuned to think of only the bad things. So how do we do that? Acknowledging both. What does that mean? That means that when you're doing something poorly, acknowledge that you've also tried and done something well. When your perfectionism's taking over, acknowledge that that is not a realistic expectation. When life is getting you down, notice that you're not going to be able to perform like you did before. We can't just be Superman or Superwoman 24/7. It's not realistic. We have to look into our lives and see what is currently possible. Sometimes there isn't really anything that is. The metaphor I always like to use for people is, so many of my clients try to be Usain Bolt, running the 100-meter in 7, 6, 8 seconds. But now, because of this whole COVID thing, you're running in water. And you cannot expect yourself to be performing at the same level. It's not appropriate. So what we have to think about is more flexible thinking. Stop being so hard on ourselves. Routines, stop being so hard on ourselves. What's some other things that we can do? Let's try to start acknowledging about things that we really truly like as human beings. Acknowledging that creativity is our only source of true, meaningful happiness. Acknowledging that we do need people, more than ever. So many people have tried to prove to me, see, I don't need people, look at this pandemic. And they're more lonely than they've ever been. Even a small amount of social contact can be good enough for a person. We need to acknowledge that. The social piece, the routines, and the flexible thinking. It's really all I have to think about for now. I wish you all good luck in the new year as we get into it. And I want you to look at it in a more flexible way, right? Millions of bad things can be happening in the new year. We're not going to be able to control any of that. But if we can really work hard on some of the things that I've talked about today and hold ourselves accountable to them and notice that they're really the only things that we can control, we can all work to be a lot happier. We might even get there. Wishing you all well, and wow, look at this weird picture I've made.